II, but the case can be made for several others. So right off the bat, what's a world war? The definition we're going to use here is that it's a global conflict, as in it takes place in multiple, rather distant parts of the world simultaneously between major world powers. We're also not going to go by number of casualties, though the two named world wars have pretty high numbers, but considering the Three Kingdoms in China is only topped in casualties by World War II, but was only fought essentially in China, numbers can be misleading. Some people would also argue the Crusades, as they ranged from northern Europe and Iberia to Asia, or the Mongol conquest through Eurasia, but we're talking bigger. Bigger as in... And first off is the 9 Years' War, or the War of the Grand Alliance, fought from 1688 to 1697. Yep, that's 9 years. Over here in the colonies, we call it King William's War because colonists typically named wars after whoever was the monarch at the time, since they understood that the king didn't make the rules, he just thought them up and wrote them down. So who was fighting? Well, on one side you had France under Louis XIV with a little help from a group known as the Jacobites, who were Brits that still believed that the rightful king was James II and the 7th. He was the second in England and Ireland, the 7th in Scotland. They named themselves after the Latin version of James, so yay them. And on the other side was a coalition.
I got a coalition of the willing. I got 40 nations ready to roll, son.
Like who?
Who the fuck said that?
Well, it comprised of the kingdoms of England and Scotland, the empires of Portugal, Spain, Sweden, and Holy Rome, plus the Duchy of Savoy and the Dutch Republic. The war was fought in Europe, North America, South America, and Asia, more specifically India. Yeah, France and the Dutch both had interest in that area. It was started more or less because Louis wanted more territory, and darndest thing, most of the rest of Europe had an issue with this. It began to wind down in 1695 as both sides were looking for peace, and a couple of them made individual peace treaties with France and bowed out. By the end, though, everyone involved realized that the war needed to end because A, war was expensive, like a harem of mail-order brides expensive, so they were going broke. Yeah, rather than continue to hemorrhage money, maybe it was time to just talk this thing out. And B, because they all became worried about Charles II, King of Spain, whose health was failing rather quickly. By the way, that right there, yeah, that's the Habsburg jaw. And you get that from generations of interbreeding in order to keep the royal bloodlines of Europe, quote-unquote, pure. His parents were uncle and niece. Another side effect of this inbreeding was an issue with infertility, and as such, Charles had not sired an heir. The leaders of Europe saw this as a coming problem, and many sought to deal with it at the peace talks known as the Peace of Ryswick, but it was decided to pursue peace without addressing it, and treaties were signed between the parties. They all went back to their respective homes, mumbling under their breath that this Spanish thing had better not become a problem. Well, guess what?